guys, and welcome back here to the Dev Realm, and today we're gonna carry on our series of the puzzles. And if you guys remember in the last episode, what we did here is that we have created a very simple button. So what the button does, nothing special, just it glows and actually is triggering stuff, which is really cool. Now what we're gonna do here is we're gonna make sure that the button goes down a little bit. So let's open up our button here again. And this time, I'm just gonna do a little bit, I'm just gonna make sure that this button here is a little bit bigger, right? I'm just gonna play with the scale. I'm just gonna disable the snapping stuff. And actually, I don't need that. That's the one, yeah. Yeah, cool. So now our the feeling that I want to give to the player is that I want to make sure that you are standing on the top of the button and then the button goes down. So it's a cool feeling. So I want to do something like this, and it goes down and then it goes up. Right. So to do that, we have pretty much the whole logic here set up. So here we're gonna call control the globe, right? And in here is gonna be it controls the the whatever it may be, right? So now what we're gonna do here is we are going to create instance of our we're gonna get our current button location, and we're gonna set that button location. So let me show what I mean here. So remember that on our lever, let me just bring our lever here so you guys can see what we've done here before. In our lever, if we go to our event graph, we are controlling the rotation, and we are setting the relative rotation, right? So we're going to be using the same thing, but it's going to be called set relative location, right? So first thing here, we're going to get the button here, and we're going to get relative location. And we're gonna promote this to a variable, and we're gonna call this guy, relative current relative location. There we go. Cool. It's gonna plug this here on play start. Great. Now there's two more things here that we need to do, but I'll show you in a minute. So now we have this in place, which is great. There's two more things that we gotta do here. So I'm gonna create another vector, and this vector is gonna be called final destination or final location. It's going to be type of a vector. And what happened is that our button here is set up to, let's put 0, 0, 0. Let's make it 0, 0, 0. I'm just gonna increase a little bit of the scale of this, and now that's fine. Right. So I'm just gonna copy this value here that you guys can see, and I'm gonna put here on the begin play. I'm gonna go where we reverse the values. So this is the original status. And if you guys know, our original status is 0, 0, and then the z-axis is this value, right? On yours may be different because you could be probably using a different mesh. And now this is gonna be the new location that we wanna move this stuff to. In our case, let's check how much can we move here. Something like maybe that. Well, that's gonna be minus 18. Great, so minus 18. Now we're gonna go back to this guy, and let's set this to minus 18, right? And that does what we need. Cool, great. So the next thing we gotta do here is just to set our relative location. So let's get our button, and we're gonna set relative location. We're gonna put this here. Plug this guy on that. Great. Now we're gonna call the vector, the function lerp, which was lerp vector. Yeah, that's the one. And now is our current relative location, and then our target, which is the final location here. We could probably come up with some better names, but yeah, But the organization is up to you guys. If you want to put this inside categories, whatever it makes easy for you, right? Right, cool. So that should now, if we done everything correctly, this should help us move our button here. So if I go back, you see? Nice. So our button moves, our character moves, and we also have a nice feeling that something is happening. You know, it's like, yeah, that's cool. Nice. Let's see if we can change this glow. Let's put something insane here. Let's put like 1,000. Let's see what the hell is gonna happen. Because, I don't know, this glow is not looking good. Let's see what's gonna happen here. There we go. So our button glows. Nice. So yeah, I think, yeah, that's quite cool. And now the next thing though, I'm just gonna put a comment on this, and I'm just gonna organize and just say here, trigger the button logic, right? Nice. So that's all good. So now we have our button fully set up. Let me just put this a little bit aligned. Great. And we now have, so now we have a couple of different puzzles. So we have levers, buttons, doors, we have lights, you know, so now you can start to combine this kind of things, and you know, opening doors and applying this concept to do different things. And then the next thing I want to do here is that I just want to show you how you could actually save those instances as they are. So if they are, you know, active, or if they are not active, I could actually probably be showing you guys how we could, you know, save that. Okay guys, yeah, so to save these parts, what we're going to be doing here is that we are going to go to our children class, our parent class, and on our parent class we gonna create two variables. So the first one here is that we're gonna create one that we're gonna be called can be saved, and another one is we're gonna call this has been triggered, right? And I'm gonna put those inside a category called save, right? And the reason why we have, let me just make sure they are public. So the reason why it can be saved is because sometimes we have, like, you know, buttons you don't really want to save a button status. We have maybe a platform or something, but sometimes you just want disable stuff. So you could use that to do this. And the next one here that we are going to do here is that we are gonna use this variable to flag if our object has been triggered in the game. So if it has been triggered, then that means that we can actually you know, trigger the same save, so the platform is in the right place once you press play, for example. And there's one thing here that I like to do for those kind of stuff, which is to put and this is totally optional, but I think when you're creating a game where you have puzzle stuff, you need this, which is item, or let's say puzzle, or let's call object ID, right? And then the object ID we are going to basically use to assign a new ID to every object that we are creating on our scene. And I'm going to show what I mean. So basically every object, when you load it, you need to have some kind of ID reference. So once you load that information, you're like, okay, I know this ID, so I can actually do X, right? Cool, so now we have all those informations. Now the next step we are going to do here is on the construct. We're just gonna set this to a random integer. Yeah, I think it needs to be random integer. Nice. And random integer in range. So the minimum value is going to be 1000 and the max value is going to be 9000. So we have a lot of numbers between those. And let's see if when we press play, the value of our object. So in here is 50 that, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so that keep changing. So what I want to do here is I am going to create a variable here called assign ID, right? This is going to be Boolean. Also going to put this here. And if this guy, actually, we're going to create a branch. If this variable is true, then it will assign our ID and then we'll reset it to false. So in this way, what we can do is that we define this to true first time, right? And then as you can see that object ID, actually this needs to be public. Great. As you can see that I have assign ID, and then the next time we move, you should still go back to, oh yeah, should go to false. Yeah. As you can see, it keeps changing the ID. So if I plug this in, change the ID, but then it goes to false. So every time you bring a new object to the scene, you're gonna have a new object ID, right? Cool. So let's delete this and let's bring, I think the one we can actually use to test this is the lever, right? Our lever here. As you can see, it has a new ID. Great. Cool. So let me just check one thing here. I think let's just put a huge number here, like a 90,000, just to make sure it doesn't get duplicate values. But it shouldn't have, but it should be quite good. Cool. Now, so how do we save this information? Let's close everything for now. And the next thing that we are going to do here is that we are going to create some kind of a logic, a class controller that will store that information for us. I'm not sure why this is complaining, but sure, save that. Yeah, I don't know why this is complaining, but I'll just press play here to make sure everything's good. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so the idea here is that once the lever is enabled, I am reloading my game, and then if that thing's marked as can be saved, then that will be saved for sure. So to do that, let's go back to our puzzle, right click here, and we're gonna go to blueprint class, and we're gonna search for save game. Here, nice. Now we're gonna create a new save game, and we're gonna call this object BP puzzle save, right? Now on the puzzle save, we're gonna do something very basic. We're gonna create here a custom, actually we're gonna create a function, and what this function is going to do, let's call this save objects, right? What this function is going to do here is that it's going to accept an array of puzzle actors, right? And they're all going to be BP puzzle, that's the type, BP base puzzle. They are going to be an array, all right? Nice. And what we're going to do here is we need to create an interface that will return those puzzles. So the idea is that we're gonna do a for each, and when we're gonna do a cast to BP base puzzle. The only problem with this is it takes a huge amount of memory, and imagine if you're creating a huge game, you're gonna have a problem with this. So what we're gonna do this to make sure that this runs better is go back to our blueprints. I'll open up here our BP base puzzle guy. Remember that we have this BPI base puzzle. Let's open up that one as well. And in here we are going to create a new function, and I'm going to call this I return puzzle ref, right? And the output this time is going to be the puzzle ref as a name, and this is going to be the type of BP puzzle, base puzzle. Awesome. Compile and save. Now what happened is that on the BP base puzzle, let's go to classes. Let's add that interface here, BPI base puzzle. So all we're doing here is that we're adding whatever is the content of this interface. Now in here you're gonna notice that we have, like actor interact. So the one we want is I return puzzle ref, and in here we're gonna return self. Right? Cool. Now with this in mind, we can just do something very simple. I return. Actually, I need to compile this first. And then what I can do is like I return puzzle ref, and we want the message. And that now is our reference to our puzzle. Great. Now there's one more thing here that we actually need to do, which is very simple, very mild here, which is we need to save only a couple of informations. The first information we need to save is the ID and has been triggered or not. That's it. That's all we need to do. Based on those two informations, we're gonna have enough context to reload all this data back. Right. So what I'm gonna do here, guys, is I'm gonna first check can be saved, and this is going to be a branch, right? If can be saved is true, then we can do some stuff. So let's go back to our BP save class here. Let's right click and let's create basically a blueprint structure. I'm gonna call this st save puzzle game, right? I'm gonna open up this guy, and in here we're gonna have only two variables. So the first one is object ID, and here is gonna be is trigger or something like this. This one is going to be an integer, right? And we're gonna save this guy. Cool. Now we're gonna get the name of this variable. Let's go back to our BP puzzle, whatever. Let's create a local, actually a variable that's actually is gonna be the one that's gonna be stored. And we're gonna call this save info or something, or yeah, could be that. The type is going to be this. Make sure is an array, and that's it. Now what you can do here is we're gonna do something like this, add, and that is going to be we need to make an array here. So I'm just gonna search for make. Now it's gonna ask for object ID. That's easy. We can just get ID. And the next variable, let me just remember how we call that, is called has been triggered. There you go. So it's gonna call this, and I'm gonna say save in here. And yeah, so now we can just do a printing here just for feedback and say completed, completed. Cool. Now, how we save this information, right? How do we actually store this data and do all this kind of stuff? Right, so the way I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna close all this stuff for now. And I am going to open up our puzzle component, the BPC puzzle here, right? Where we have done all this stuff. I'm just going to create two functions. I'm going to call API custom event, and we're going to call API save game. And I'm going to create another one, which is going to be called API load game, right? Now, the reason why we're not going to be using servers and multicast and all that is because in this case, we're going to have, if you want to save this on the server, we're going to be having to using instances and replicate to other users, and that get very complicated. So I'm just going to use a very simple thing here just to save, and and that will be very simple. Now we need to find a way to trigger those. So the way we can actually do this, you go back to our puzzle, game modes. Let's open up our time controller. And in here I have a interaction puzzle. I'm just going to create another keyboard, and then I'm going to search for L, and I'm going to create another one. It's going to be a keyboard again. and that's going to be, yeah, K. There we go. So when we press K, we're gonna save, and when we press L, we are going to load. So the first thing we're gonna do is something like, you know, saving. Oh, saving. And in here, we're gonna put it just loading. Loading. Great. Now the next thing I want to do is compiling all that stuff, right? Great. And remember that we got our puzzle here, so what we can do is just call the API save. Like that, and then we can call API load game. Right. Cool. So now if you press play and if you press K to save, and you see there, say saving, and then L is say, it doesn't say anything. Oh yeah, that's because I'm using I, so I'm just need to search for keyboard L again. Keyboard key L. Let's see if I can find, there we go. Oh no. There we go. L. Nice. I was using I here, but yeah, cool. Now if I press play, we should have L to loading and K to saving, which doesn't make any sense, but that's fine, just so we can trigger this. Right, cool. Now the next thing we're doing here is that we need to basically get all those actors that we can interact with. How can we do this? And you guys already done this, so if you browse to asset here, if you actually go to the children, remember that we use something called get component by class. So now what we can do here is something different. We can get our actors, and that will get all the actors you have with a certain class. And the class that we're looking for is BP base puzzle, right? Cool. Now if I do a print and do a length, I should have some actors in the game, right? And let's check there. It's the right way of doing this. So now if I press K, I have 3. And the reason why I have 3 is because if you guys remember a couple of tutorials ago, we have added the lights and some things here. But yeah, that's why we have 3. Nice, so how can we save this game? Now the easiest thing we can do here is we can actually create a save game object. And the save object here will ask for a class. In our case, is BP base puzzle. And then here we can just call save game. And we're gonna call save game to slot. It's always good to try to use the async if you can. Async means that it will keep executing whatever, but once it's completed, it's gonna send a callback for you, right? And here is going to ask for the save game. So we're just gonna put this here. And it's gonna ask for the slot name, and we're gonna call, let's promote this actually to a variable, and let's call this save game name. Let's compile and save, and let's call this puzzle fun 01. There we go. Cool. Now once it's saved, we're gonna just print and say saved, right? Now if now what happened is that we need to do a couple of other things here before this thing can actually work properly. So there is only one thing that we got to do here. So the first thing we need to do is that, if you notice, now our BP puzzle has the BP puzzle save object, and if you guys remember, we have created something called save object. So what we got to do here is that we're gonna get save is the instance, so save objects. We need to call this function, yeah, and now we need to plug those actors in here. Then whatever this method is doing is going to handle for us, and then we are saving that object once everything is completed. So now if I press play here, now we're gonna press K. It should say saved and completed. Now if you go back to my game here, so here we're gonna go back to our nope, that's the wrong one. This is gonna be Unreal Engine project. Yeah, so puzzle time. We're gonna go to save game. Now if you go to save games, you have the puzzle fun 01, which has some date on it, which is whatever we have saved. This is really good. Now the last thing we need to do here is that we need to load those informations. How do we do that? Right, so to do this, it's simpler as well, nothing complicated. We're just gonna call load save game, and we're gonna load synchronously, and we're gonna put this referencing here, right? And now what we can do here is we can cast to BP puzzle save time. And I know I am using cast for this instance, but the reason why I'm using cast is because we're doing this only once, and we need to access whatever is the content that we have saved on our puzzle here, which in our case is save info, right? So what happened here, it's gonna save the data, is that we need to get actually now what we need to do here, just stop about it, is that we need to create a method to get that information for us. Let me show what I mean. So now that we have this is everything good. I'm gonna create here a function called get save game info, or yeah, save game object info. Let me just put this here, right? Now the next thing here we're doing is we're gonna do a for each loop, right? Actually, we're gonna do a for each loop with break now. For each with break, nice. And the reason why we're doing break is because now we need to pass a parameter called ID. So we are searching for that ID. Make sure this is an integer. And now we can break this, and we can make sure that if the object ID of this loop equals to whatever the ID we're trying to match, then we can actually do some stuff. Now we can do that. Now the next thing that we need to do here is a very simple thing. First, we need to promote this to a local variable and call, let's say, object founded info or something. And we're going to create another variable called is valid, right? Is valid means that we have found something, right? And make sure that is valid is a single, not array. So if it's valid, we're going to set this to true, and we're also going to set the object founded info to true. Then we are going to loop this back and say break. So breaks the loop. I'm going to double click in here just so it makes the nodes organized. And then I'm going to return this information by doing this, right? And the reason, guys, why we're doing this break here is because imagine if you have 1,000 here, and then we're just making sure that it runs better. So is valid object. Let's just call the return is valid object and object info or something. Cool, that will work. Now, how do we load this stuff, right? How do we actually do things in here in a way that we can trigger the handle object thing? Right, very simple. Now, if we go back to our puzzle time object here, we go our object reference, right? Now we need to do exactly the same thing we did here, so we can do get all actors of that class. And in this time, we're gonna just do a for each loop, right? And now I'm gonna call my interface I return the puzzle ref. This will actually return the object information without having to do a cast. And now, what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna get the ID. And if you guys remember, we have this method from our puzzle called save info. Now actually, get save game object information. or info. So I could promote this to a variable if I want to, but in this case, we're just gonna do something simple like this. And we're gonna plug this guy there, and we're gonna create a branch. And if it's valid, then we can actually do some stuff here, right? So if they match, they have the ID, what we can do here is we can get a branch. And here we can also create another branch. And now if the object is valid, what we can do is call the fn handle actor interaction, right? And we do not have the BPC puzzle information. Oh, actually we do. Yeah, self. And now let's see what's gonna happen. So there is only one thing here that I forgot to do, which is very important. I know this video is gonna be longer, but we're just kind of wrapping up with this. So if I open up my lever, right? The last thing you guys, the thing that you need to do here is that when our lever is active, if you find a reference in here, when we actually setting this to active, there's one more variable that we have to set here. And if you guys go to the base puzzle, remember that we have created this thing here called has been triggered. So in here, what we need to do is set has been triggered. Make sure this is true. And make sure that's also true, right? Cool. Now what we can do here for testing first is we're just gonna do a print and make sure that this is true or false. Let's see if that's actually working to do those kind of stuff. So let's see if that works. So now it's active, right? And I'm gonna press K to save my game. Now I'm gonna close that, and I am gonna press L to load the data. And you see that thing saying true. That means that our lever has been set to true. So what happened is that because that value has been set to true, what would happen is that we can make sure it's true, blah blah blah, and that could be used as the actor interaction. So now if I press L, you see that whole information interacts with everything else. And yeah guys, so what you could do with this is something like, you know, I know this is once again getting longer, but we're just wrapping up with our series in here, but I just want to show a nice thing you can actually do with it. You know, now you could get, for example, let's get our door here, right? And let's say that this lever interact with our door, and our door can also be saved. Now, the only thing that you need to keep in mind is that if I open up here, let me just cancel this for now, open up my door, and I'm gonna go here to handle whatever. Remember that we have that has trigger, has been triggered. We just need to pass this parameter here, whatever we want to trigger something, right? All and save. Now, this lever will trigger that door. So if I go back in here, we should be able to trigger the door, which is nice. But let's say, I don't know, you reach here, you create some kind of a checkpoint, and then you hit save game. Great. Now what you can do here is that now once you preload the game, you press L, everything is already loaded for you. In this case here, as you can see, is triggering our lever. So our door doesn't need to be saved. As you can see that, our door doesn't necessarily need to be saved. This is one of the reasons why we need this information too, right? Because, you know, if you have been trigger a lever, you know, you can trigger that thing again. So now let me just show what I mean. So I save the data. I'm gonna save information, press play, and now I'm gonna press L. Everything should load and the door is open. And yeah guys, I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to cover in this series. I know this episode got extremely long, more than usual, but I think we managed to cover many areas and puzzles and things. You guys go introduction to different puzzle styles. You go introduction to also to this to a saving game thing as well, which is really cool. I think this is really nice. This is, you see, saving game is a very easy thing to do in Unreal Engine. It's not complicated at all. You just need to get those similar logics ready and things together, and that will work really fine. And yeah, guys, so once again, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed this series. Leave any comments, anything that you think that it was missed or you guys would like to see. If you think that there's something that, oh, can you please do this, or is missing this feature, or can you explain me more about this, I'll be happy to do that. And also yeah, leave any suggestion for next series. Hope you guys enjoy, and see you next time.